Digging through the dust-covered scandals of 1970s 80s Hollywood, I uncovered an ugly truth: Elizabeth Taylor was forever labeled a homewrecker. While Warren Beatty, who left a trail of broken relationships across Tinseltown, was worshipped as a legendary Lothario. This glaring double standard begs the question: why does Hollywood still judge women by harsher rules when it comes to love and lust? The deeper I investigated, the more disturbing the pattern became. Powerful leading men were often the instigators of affairs that wrecked marriages, yet the press painted them as dashing heartbreakers who simply couldn't resist temptation. Meanwhile, their female counterparts faced career-ending consequences for the same behavior. The most shocking revelation? When Ingrid Bergman's affair with director Roberto Rossellini became public. She was blacklisted from Hollywood for years, while Rossellini's career flourished without a scratch. Fast forward to today, and the script hasn't changed. Male stars see scandals as career boosters, while actresses risk becoming pariahs overnight. Even in our so-called woke era, the same old rules apply. A-list actors still get standing ovations at award shows after multiple divorces and affairs, while their ex-wives get reduced to tabloid punchlines. The real scandal isn't the affairs themselves, it's that after all these years, we're still buying into Hollywood's tired double standard. When will we stop giving men a free pass and start holding everyone accountable by the same rules? Until then, the silver screen's golden boys will keep getting away with murder while the women pay the price. Today's biographical documentary has been enhanced with AI technology to deliver the most accurate facts and compelling storytelling. Warren Beatty, when handsome is a crime. Hollywood isn't short on charming men. But there's a special kind of charm, one that isn't in their eyes or their smile, but in their power to make others uneasy when their significant other talks to them. Warren Beatty was exactly that kind of man. And in the 70s, if a whirlwind ever swept through Hollywood, devastating the hearts of women, from rising actresses to wives sitting quietly at their husbands' dinner tables, that whirlwind went by two words: Warren. Born in 1937 into an intellectual family, Beatty wasn't like the drifters who arrived in Hollywood barefoot with pipe dreams. He was well educated, had an older sister, Shirley MacLaine, a true star from the 1950s, and a look that made men envious and women doubt themselves. Talent? He had it. But it was his looks, the perfect blend of a young Brando and James Dean's arrogance, that made directors choose him, journalists flock to him, and women fluster even when walking beside their boyfriends. His breakthrough role in Splendor in the Grass, 1961, didn't just put Beatty on Hollywood's map. It created a living legend, a man who could displace anyone from a woman's heart with just one deep gaze into her eyes. They met in 1959, when Joan Collins was still England's proud muse, and Warren was just someone seeking the spotlight. But the spotlight found him faster than he expected. Joan was 5 years older than Beatty, had been married once, and was in an unofficial relationship with a wealthy businessman. Warren knew, but he didn't care. Warren didn't flirt in the usual way, Joan later recounted. He invaded. They fell madly in love, and no one dared ask Joan about her old flame anymore. Warren turned everything into the past simply by his presence. And just as he arrived, he left, abruptly, coldly, leaving Joan with a child that was never born. The affair ended with an abortion, a broken heart, and a first lesson: Warren Beatty didn't love anyone for longer than 6 months, except himself. After Joan Collins came a long list: Natalie Wood, Leslie Caron, Julie Christie, Carly Simon, Diane Keaton, Goldie Hawn, Madonna. Sometimes, people suspected the list was concocted by unverified tabloids, until one by one, each of them confirmed it, or didn't deny it. The story with Julie Christie is one example. While Beatty was dating her, the British film star, an Oscar winner, he was seen appearing at a hotel with Carly Simon, the famous singer-songwriter. The situation turned chaotic when all three were present at the same film event in New York. The result, Christie left the event midway, and Simon wrote the song You're So Vain, rumored to be about Beatty. But those minor scandals were nothing compared to one of the heavyweight dramas, the love triangle between Al Pacino, Diane Keaton, Warren Beatty. In 1977, when Al Pacino was at the peak of his career with The Godfather and Dog Day Afternoon, he was dating Diane Keaton, the graceful and independent actress who had even captivated Woody Allen. They were an iconic couple, not ostentatious, but profound. And then Beatty walked in. Initially, it was just professional meetings. Diane was invited to participate in the film Reds, directed by and starring Beatty. But no one was surprised when rumors exploded. Beatty had been taking Diane to dinner for 3 straight weeks, going back and forth with her while she still hadn't broken up with Al. Pacino never publicly criticized Beatty, but he withdrew from events where Diane was present for 3 years afterward. Diane evaded all questions, and Beatty, as usual, remained silent, moving on to the next woman. Warren Beatty was once called the new generation's Brando by critics. But the truth is he resembled a real-life Gatsby, wealthy, dazzling, and living off illusory romances. Hollywood loved him. The press needed him. Women adored him. And men, they hated him. Some directors refused to work with Beatty because they feared losing their wives. Some male co-stars requested private rooms for their girlfriends if Beatty was on set. The reputation of Hollywood's greatest homewrecker gradually became an inseparable part of his name. In 1992, all of Hollywood was stunned to hear Beatty had married. No one believed it. Many bet he was playing a new role for an unannounced comedy film. But it was true. Annette Bening, an intelligent, strong-willed actress who wasn't drawn into the Beatty vortex like those before her, made the philanderer put down his game. I no longer want to love the way I used to, Beatty said in an interview. I found a woman who didn't need to be conquered, and that's what made me stop. Warren Beatty wasn't just the third party in relationships, he was the ultimate test of a romance's stability. His appearance often meant something would break, or was about to be questioned. Not because he tried to, but because he could. And in Hollywood, where everything can be rewritten, men like Warren Beatty didn't just rewrite movie scripts, they rewrote the endings of love stories that seemed untouchable. Jack Nicholson, the boundary breaker, the marriage wrecker. In Hollywood, there are men who charm in the classic way, polite, intelligent, and smooth like red wine. But Jack Nicholson was not like that. He was more like high-proof liquor mixed with gunpowder, evaporating in a smile, leaving behind aftershocks for a lifetime. If Warren Beatty was a fox gliding through the romantic forest with innate beauty, then Jack Nicholson was an old wolf who preferred to tear down what had been built, a marriage, a friendship, or even his own image. Because in Jack's world, boundaries were made to be broken, and women were the reward after he did just that. No one could rewrite fate quite like Hollywood rewrote Jack's life. Born in 1937, Nicholson grew up believing that Ethel was his mother. It wasn't until 1974, when a Time magazine reporter investigated his biography, that the truth was exposed. The person he thought was his sister, June, was actually his biological mother. Ethel was merely his grandmother. The father disappeared before he was born. Nicholson received the truth with a quiet smile. I lived with a secret for 37 years, and the only thing I learned was, nothing is sacred forever. Perhaps that real-life twist molded a man who didn't believe in molds, and also didn't respect them, especially marriage. They were Hollywood's golden couple for nearly 2 decades. Jack Nicholson, American cinema's most rebellious man, and Angelica Houston, daughter of legendary director John Huston, possessing classic beauty and an iron will. They met in 1973. And from there began one of Hollywood's longest, most painful, and strangest love affairs. They didn't marry. No children. And not a day went by without the press speculating whether Angelica would leave Jack or forgive yet another betrayal. Because throughout their nearly 17 years together, Jack continuously cheated on her. Not just one-night stands with female fans, but real relationships with married women. Once, an anonymous director's wife sent Angelica a threatening letter. "How much longer can you put up with him? You're living with a wrecker." Angelica didn't reply. But she didn't leave. Until a shocking scandal occurred. Jack got another woman pregnant. ILM producer. They had lived together for nearly 3 years and were considering getting engaged. But then Rebecca disappeared from events, only to reappear in the guest seat beside Jack Nicholson at the 1989 Oscars. What happened? No one explicitly said. But everyone understood. Nicholson had intervened in a stable relationship, just as he always did. Angelica Houston found out after Rebecca announced her pregnancy. In her memoir, Angelica recounted that she punched Jack twice in the face after hearing the news, then left the house she once thought she'd grow old in with him. Rebecca bore Jack 2 children. But they only stayed together for a few years. Upon their breakup, she bitterly stated, "I thought I was the only one he wouldn't cheat on. I was wrong." If Beatty was famous for the number of beautiful women he dated, Nicholson was more infamous for the number of alleged marriage interventions, with evidence, names, and consequences. Michelle Phillips, the mamas and the papas. When Nicholson was involved with Michelle, she was still in an unofficial marriage with Dennis Hopper. The irony was that Dennis and Jack were friends, co-starring in Easy Rider. That friendship shattered after the scandal. Lara Flynn Boyle. While Lara was dating David Spade, a famous comedian, she unexpectedly appeared hand-in-hand with Jack at a party. David was completely unaware. When asked, he simply replied, "I thought Lara and I were still a couple." Susan Anspach. While Susan was living with a young screenwriter, Jack began an affair with her behind the scenes of the film 5 Easy Pieces. Later, Susan gave birth to a child she claimed was Jack's, but he didn't acknowledge him for decades, until a DNA test. Jack Nicholson never apologized. That's what made people simultaneously despise and be unable to look away from him. A producer once said, "There are 2 people I never invite my wife to the set with, Jack Nicholson and Mick Jagger." He embodied a chaotic masculinity, a charisma that made women forget boundaries, and made men constantly doubt whether their relationships were strong enough to withstand a drink invitation from Jack. And bitterly, most of the time the answer was no. Jack's portrayal of the Joker in Batman, 1989, is considered one of the greatest transformations of all time. But what's more haunting is, Jack didn't need to act much. His erratic personality, the twisted, half-insane, half-real smile, the ability to manipulate others, all were part of his true self. At one point, Jack was seen as a manipulator of an entire emotional industry. He could make a woman leave her husband after just a few days of filming together, and make a director lose his mind just for losing his lover to his co-star. Jack Nicholson never married. Nor did he ever live with anyone long-term. In a rare sharing with the press, he said, "I've loved many people, but never enough to believe I could keep them. Or for them to keep me." In his twilight years, Jack lives alone in his mansion on Mulholland Drive, once a gathering spot for artists, wild parties, and fleeting romances from behind the Oscar curtain. People call him a legend, the last rebel, a monument no one dares approach. But when the spotlight fades, and the women have exited his life, all that remains is an old man, quietly looking out the window, and wondering, did any of them ever truly love me? Eric Clapton, the slow poison of forbidden love. In the annals of rock and roll betrayals, no transgression cuts deeper than the violation of brotherhood. Eric Clapton didn't merely steal a wife, he poisoned a friendship that had once been sacred. The late 1960s saw two guitar gods walking parallel paths, George Harrison, the quiet Beatle with Eastern mysticism in his soul, and Eric Clapton, the blues prodigy who played like a man possessed. Their bond transcended music, they were spiritual twins, trading licks and philosophies in an era when rock was religion. Harrison once called Clapton closer than blood. That was his first mistake. Pattie Boyd wasn't just a woman, she was an era. The face of swinging London, the inspiration behind Harrison's Something, the most covered Beatles song after Yesterday, and the living embodiment of 60s idealism. Her marriage to George seemed unshakable until Clapton looked at her not as a friend's wife, but as his own unfinished symphony. He didn't court her. He composed for her. Private serenades became stolen glances, then Layla, a 7-minute howl of desperation disguised as a rock anthem. The entire Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs album was a public fever dream, with Patty as its phantom heroine. What makes Clapton's sin unforgivable isn't the theft, it's the theater of it. In 1974, at Harrison's own Friar Park estate, Clapton confronted his friend with brutal honesty. "I'm in love with your wife." Harrison's response, strumming his sitar, barely glancing up, was either enlightenment or surrender. "Then try." For 3 more years, the marriage limped forward, haunted by Clapton's specter. By 1977, Patty left. By 1979, she married her tormentor. The victory should have tasted sweet. Instead, it curdled instantly. Clapton's Layla fantasy crumbled under the weight of reality. Within years, he was cheating with Italian model Lori Del Santo, fathering a child while still married to Patty. His excuse? "I love you, but I need my freedom." The cruel punchline? This was exactly what he denied Harrison. Harrison never publicly condemned Clapton, but their friendship became a museum piece, preserved but lifeless. His only comment, "Patty's soul belongs to no one." Patty spent decades as the prize in a game she never chose. Later writing in Wonderful Tonight, "I was a muse, never a person." Clapton won his war only to find the battlefield empty. His son Connor's tragic death in 1991 birthed Tears in Heaven, a grief so profound it made Layla sound like childish obsession. Was it ever love? Or just the thrill of chasing what belonged to his best friend? Clapton's entire career suggests an addict's pattern: intense craving, brief possession, then disinterest. Patty was his heroine, all-consuming until the needle left his vein. At Harrison's 2001 funeral, as Clapton played "While My Guitar Gently Weeps," the truth hung heavier than the chords. Some debts can't be repaid with music. Layla remains immortal, not as a love song, but as a confession. The greatest bluesman of his generation wrote his masterpiece about coveting his brother's wife, then proved the blues weren't just in his fingers, but in his soul. In the end, Clapton didn't just lose Patty. He lost the man who once called him brother. And no guitar solo can scream loud enough to drown that silence. They say to write the blues, you must live them. Clapton lived this one twice, first as the thief, then as the man left holding empty hands. So tell me, when the music fades, what remains? The love? The guilt? Or just the echo of a chord that should never have been played? Ryan O'Neal, the screen hero, the backstage heart thief. Hollywood once called him the Golden Boy, the blonde prince of 1970s American cinema. With a baby face and the lost eyes of a man perpetually searching for love in a deceptive world. But behind that facade lay a truth that filmmakers whispered among themselves whenever he left the room. Ryan O'Neal can steal your role. And if you're not careful, he'll steal your wife too. Born in 1941, Ryan O'Neal began his career with supporting television roles before skyrocketing to fame in Love Story, 1970, the globally sensational romance film that transformed him into a new generation's romantic icon. On screen, Ryan was the ideal man, warm, passionately in love, resilient, and devoted. But real life was different. He might be gentle in films, but in reality, he was hot-tempered. Easily lost control, and didn't hesitate to intrude on relationships others thought were solid. Ryan's first victim was the woman closest to him, Joanna Moore, his first wife and mother of Tatum O'Neal. They married in 1963, but as Ryan began to gain fame, he grew distant from his family, abandoning Joanna as she struggled with alcoholism and psychosis. No one intervened in that marriage, except for Ryan's own ego. And from then on, he became an emotional wanderer, always appearing at just the right moment to replace the man a vulnerable woman needed to forget. In 1972, Ryan starred in the comedy film What's Up, Doc? Alongside Barbra Streisand, one of Hollywood's most powerful stars at the time. Streisand was then in a relationship with John Peters, a famous hairstylist and producer who had been with her for nearly a decade. Ryan and Barbra were initially just colleagues. But then they became confidants, traveled together, and appeared together at parties, all while Streisand was still living with John Peters. One day, Barbra publicly broke up with John. No one was surprised when, weeks later, she moved in with Ryan. Peters recounted in an interview, "I thought we were just taking a break. But when I went back home, they were living together." The most memorable story in Ryan's interfering career wasn't with Barbra or Joanna, but with the iconic woman of a generation, Farrah Fawcett. Farrah was the sex symbol of the 1970s with her role in Charlie's Angels and the classic poster hung in millions of dorm rooms. When she met Ryan O'Neal in 1979, she was married to actor Lee Majors, the $6 Million Man. Lee Majors and Ryan were close friends. During one of Majors' absences for distant filming, Ryan visited Farrah to chat and ease her loneliness. Those visits gradually turned into long nights. By the time Lee Majors found out, it was too late. Ryan had moved in with his friend's wife. Ryan and Farrah were together for over 3 decades, but it wasn't a fairy tale romance. It was a continuous internal struggle, with breakups, reconciliations, tears, anger, and many accusations of emotional, and even physical, abuse. Farrah once testified in a 1997 deposition that Ryan was controlling, pathologically jealous, and had slapped her during an argument. She also once left him after discovering Ryan sleeping with a friend of hers in their own home. However, when Farrah was diagnosed with late-stage cancer in 2006, Ryan was by her side every day. He cared for her, managed her medication, and even proposed to her in the hospital. "I want to marry you, even if it's just for a few weeks." Farrah declined. But in her final days, Ryan was still the only person she wanted to see. She passed away in 2009, and Ryan wept like a child. The price for these passionate affairs, interventions, and betrayals of loved ones was the permanent rupture in the relationship between Ryan and his daughter, Tatum O'Neal, who won an Oscar at just 10 years old, Paper Moon, 1973, alongside her own father. Tatum once said in her memoir, "I don't know who my father is. I only know he's the man who always made another woman cry." They tried to reconcile on the reality show Ryan and Tatum, The O'Neals, 2011, but it failed. the bitterness had permeated their blood. Ryan O'Neal passed away in 2023 at the age of 82. The entire film world mourned a talented actor, an iconic face of 1970s romantic cinema. But behind the scenes, people whispered an unsolved question. Was anyone truly happy beside him? Joanna, shattered. Barbara, left. Farah, lived alone. Tatum, still refused to attend her father's funeral. Ryan O'Neal is proof of a truth Hollywood always tries to hide. Love, if it begins with intervention, will end in loneliness. Billy Bob Thornton, the wild wind that swept through others' beds. Some interlopers are driven by cunning. Some are driven by obsession. But Billy Bob Thornton, he needed no reason at all. He arrived like a hot Texas wind, sweeping through people's beds, leaving behind the scent of sweat, tattoo ink, cheap whiskey, and belated apologies. Born in Arkansas, Billy Bob carried a chiseled face, eyes full of devilry, and a voice that was half persuasive, half sarcastic. He wasn't handsome like Brad Pitt, nor as suave as George Clooney, but he possessed something Hollywood craved: danger. From Sling Blade, 1996, the film he wrote, directed, and starred in, Billy Bob rose to stardom. But simultaneously, he plummeted deep into the list of prime suspects in every painful breakup among female artists. In 1997, Laura Dern, the blonde muse of Jurassic Park, met and fell in love with Billy Bob on the set of Daddy in Them. At the time, she had just emerged from a relationship with Jeff Goldblum, recovering, cautiously opening her heart again. Billy Bob, strangely enough, was also gentle. He took her to Arkansas to visit his hometown, spoke of plans for commitment, of marriage. Laura recounted, "I believed he was the last man I would ever need in my life. But life enjoys playing tricks." Because when Laura went home to her mother's for a few days, Billy Bob disappeared. And then, like a knife slash across a half-finished painting, headlines screamed, "Billy Bob Thornton marries Angelina Jolie in Las Vegas." No warning. No announcement. No goodbye. Laura Dern said in a later interview, "I left home for a few days, and when I came back, my boyfriend had gotten married. It wasn't just betrayal. She was also replaced by a wild, seductive, blood-tinged icon, Angelina Jolie." Angelina Jolie and Billy Bob Thornton were something Hollywood couldn't define. It wasn't love, it was possession. Both frequently appeared on red carpets with bizarre statements. "We made love in the car, right before this event. He drinks my blood every day." They even wore vials containing each other's actual blood as necklaces, something that became a symbol of a sick love that the media at the time couldn't ignore. Billy Bob recounted, "When I looked into her eyes, I wasn't myself anymore. I just wanted to disappear into her body." They married in 2000, after exactly 2 months of dating. And it crumbled after 3 years. Angelina adopted Maddox, her first child, with the intention that Billy Bob would co-parent. But he disappeared from their lives not long after. Jolie coldly admitted in an interview, "He just didn't want to be a father anymore." Billy Bob once justified himself, "I'm not suited for the spotlight. I just want to be a normal person." But no one believed him. Someone who had intruded into Laura Dern's life couldn't reject the spotlight so easily. After Angelina, Billy Bob seemed to drift like a boundless soul. Sometimes he lived reclusively, only playing country music. Sometimes he returned to the screen, playing con artists, drunkards, miserable old men. All were just him, only increasingly worn-out versions. Some say Jolie was just an excuse that Laura Dern loved too deeply, while Billy Bob viewed the relationship merely as a test run. But others believe. Billy Bob didn't know how to love anyone without hurting others. And in the world of interlopers, he was the most dangerous kind. He didn't scheme, didn't hunt, he just acted. Then left as if he had never existed. Laura Dern no longer talks about Billy Bob. Neither does Angelina Jolie. In their memoirs, both gloss over his name as if he were just a mild fever from their youth. But everyone knows, no fever leaves no scar. Ethan Hawke, the sleepwalker who lost a legend. If anyone ever made people believe that romantic men truly existed in Hollywood, it was Ethan Hawke, with his dreamy eyes, haunting dialogue, and a way of making women think he was the answer to every soul's yearning. But after all the whispered words under the moon and that before sunrise philosophy of love, people forgot one thing. Even dreamers can be the third party. Born in 1970, Ethan Hawke entered cinema with an indifferent yet captivating charm, from Dead Poets Society, 1989, to Reality Bites, 1994. But the peak of his ideal lover image came with Before Sunrise, 1995, a film that made women worldwide believe that just one night in Vienna was enough to change their lives. And there, Ethan gradually became synonymous with the guy for lonely souls. They met on the set of Gattaca, 1997. Uma was already a huge star, an ice queen with killer eyes and a sculpted face. Ethan was the fire of doubt, burning away that coldness with handwritten letters and sensual poems. In 1998, they married in a simple but romantic ceremony. 2 children were born. A beautiful home in Manhattan, and it seemed this would be a rare testament to Hollywood still believes in love. But then everything shattered. And the first piece of the crack came from inside the home. In 2004, headlines simultaneously reported Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman were divorcing. The initial reason given was busy schedules and work pressure. But then, TMZ and Page 6 leaked the news. Ethan had an affair with their children's nanny. Her name was Ryan Shaw Hughes. Then just a college student working part-time. Not strikingly beautiful, not a celebrity, but she had something Uma no longer possessed, 24/7 presence beside Ethan when he felt most lonely. Ethan initially denied it. But not long after, he publicly confirmed his relationship with Ryan Shaw Hughes and married her in 2008. And this is what Ethan once told a magazine when asked about the scandal. Humans are not programmed to love only one person for life. Fidelity is a social construct, not a biological instinct. That wasn't an apology. Nor was it a justification. It was a confession, cold and cruel. Uma Thurman didn't speak much. But it was said that she didn't appear publicly with any man for many years afterward. When Before Sunset, 2004, the second part of the famous romance series, was released, the character Jesse, played by Ethan, confessed to Celine that he was married with children but was unhappy. Many viewers shed tears. They thought it was the script. But someone on the film crew revealed that most of Ethan's dialogue was real. The director just asked, "What do you want to say to the woman you once loved but let slip away?" It turned out Ethan's art and life had no boundaries. And that made his transgressions even more deeply felt. Ethan Hawke has always been considered Hollywood's intellectual. He wrote novels, directed plays, made documentaries about jazz artists. But none of that could wash away the single blemish everyone remembers. He once destroyed a family by the hand of a nanny, and with the excuse that humans are inherently unfaithful. Uma once said in an interview with Oprah, "I believed in something for so long. And when it broke, I lost faith in myself." She struggled with depression, insomnia, and years of therapy. But then she returned, strong and independent, in Kill Bill and many critically acclaimed independent films. And Ethan, still acting, still writing books, still appearing as if nothing had happened. And Ryan, the nanny from back then, is now his legal wife, raising 2 young children. Ethan Hawke is not a traditional villain. He didn't plot, didn't overtly deceive, didn't create loud scandals. He was just someone who passed through, stopped when he felt warm, and left when he felt cold. The problem is, he left behind a woman who had lost all faith in love, and 2 children who suddenly lost a stable home. And in the list of Hollywood interlopers, Ethan is the type people don't hate, but also can't forgive. Steve McQueen, the rebel icon of 1970s Hollywood, a noir-style investigation. The name Steve McQueen conjures images of smoldering stairs, screeching tires, and a trail of broken hearts. He wasn't just Hollywood's king of cool, he was a man who lived like a character ripped straight from a hard-boiled detective novel. Chiseled jaw, devil-may-care smirk, and a rap sheet of scandals that would make even the most jaded tabloid editor raise an eyebrow. This is the story of McQueen, the star, the seducer, the enigma. Born in 1930, McQueen's early life was straight out of a noir prologue, abandoned by his father, shuffled between relatives, a stint in reform school. But like all great anti-heroes, he clawed his way up. First as a Marine, then a drifter, then an actor. His breakout? The Magnificent Seven, 1960, where he stole scenes with just a squint and a swagger. By Bullet, 1968. He wasn't just an actor, he was a myth. That iconic Mustang chase? Pure McQueen, relentless, reckless, irresistible. But off-screen, the plot thickened. McQueen didn't just play rebels, he was one. His love life read like a pulp fiction thriller. Neil Adams, 1956 to 1972, his first wife, his stabilizing force, until he blew it. Rumors swirled of flings with starlets like Mamie Van Doren. The blonde bombshell who once purred, Steve didn't chase women, they crashed into him. Ollie McGraw, 1973 to 1978, the scandal that shook Hollywood. She was married to Paramount kingpin Robert Evans when McQueen swept in during The Getaway, 1972. The set was electric with tension, whispers of stolen kisses between takes. Evans allegedly found love letters. The divorce was messy. The press ate it up. The others, Ursula Andress, Bond girl with a taste for danger, Candice Bergen, sharp wit, sharper beauty. Michelle Phillips, folk siren with a broken heart. McQueen didn't just date, he left marks. The man had a code, no apologies, no explanations. Just that trademark half-smile and a revved-up engine. By the late 70s, the script turned grim. The smoking, the drinking, the fast living, it caught up with him. Lung cancer. The tough guy who cheated death on screen couldn't outrun it in real life. He died in 1980, age 50. But legends don't fade. They linger in the haze of cigarette smoke, the growl of a muscle car, the echo of a line from the Thomas Crown Affair. There are some things a man just can't run away from. The verdict. Steve McQueen wasn't just a star. He was a warning, a shot of whiskey in a world of weak tea. Women wanted him. Men wanted to be him. And Hollywood? It still hasn't found a replacement. Frank Sinatra, the dawn of Hollywood affairs, a symphony of scandal. The velvet voice that defined an era concealed a rap sheet of romantic crimes that would make Casanova blush. Frank Sinatra wasn't just music royalty, he was the original Hollywood playboy, a man who treated marriage vows like lyrics to be rewritten when something catchier came along. Behind the crooner's effortless charm lay a decades-long trail of broken hearts, mobbed-up scandals, and whispered confessions that still echo through Vegas corridors and Beverly Hills boudoirs. The Rat Pack Lothario's modus operandi. 4 marriages. hundreds of documented affairs. Sinatra's little black book read like a leather-bound encyclopedia of Hollywood's golden age ingenues. His first wife, the devoted Nancy Barbato, learned the hard way, catching him mid-tryst with starlets like Dorothy Kirsten before their explosive 1951 divorce. But this was merely the opening act in his symphony of seduction. Enter Ava Gardner, the ultimate femme fatale who became both his greatest obsession and most spectacular failure. Their volcanic marriage burned white-hot, with Sinatra cheating even while composing love letters in blood, sometimes literally, after drunken fights. Frank loved me. Gardner later confessed to Hedda Hopper, but he loved every dame who walked by the Copa, every starlet at MGM, every cigarette girl who batted her lashes at him. Marilyn Monroe, Lauren Bacall, Lana Turner. The list grew like a police blotter at a precinct near Sunset Strip. Midlife Casanova, the chairman's second act. While most men slowed at 40, Sinatra hit his predatory prime. His 1966 marriage to Doide Mia Farrow, 30 years his junior and wide-eyed enough to believe his lies, proved the chairman's appetite recognized no age limits or taboos. Dark rumors swirled of backstage trysts with Judy Garland during her most vulnerable moments, of payoffs to hushed-up abortions, of Frank's associates ensuring certain stories never saw print. Then there was Marilyn. The darkest movement in his symphony. Declassified FBI files and dying confessions from Rat Pack insiders hint at Sinatra's shadowy role in her final. Desperate Days, was the singer merely another lover in her spiral, or did his connections to certain businessmen play a more sinister role? The full truth remains buried deeper than Jimmy Hoffa. But this much is certain, where Sinatra loved, trouble followed like a tailwind behind his private jet. Legacy of a Love Bandit, the blueprint for bad behavior. When the music finally faded in 1998, Old Blue Eyes left more than platinum records and a vacant throne at the Sands. He'd crafted the original playbook for celebrity infidelity, the template every bad boy from Leo to Bieber would later follow. Women knew he'd break their hearts. Knew he'd move on before their perfume faded from his sheets. They lined up anyway, drawn like moths to the dangerous glow of his celebrity. That was Sinatra's real genius. Not the voice. Not the swagger, but the ruthless calculus that a man's heart has infinite vacancies if he refuses to acknowledge the eviction notices. He didn't chase women. They surrendered willingly, knowing full well they'd become just another verse in his endless ballad of conquests. And to this day, every celebrity scandal still carries faint echoes of his greatest hit, I Did It My Way. Final notes. The cigarette smoke clears. The tumbler of Jack sits empty. Somewhere, a jukebox plays One for My Baby on infinite repeat. The case remains officially open. But let's be honest, we all know the verdict. Arnold Schwarzenegger, the betrayer behind his own door. There's nothing more painful than being betrayed on your own territory. No one thought that muscular man, the invincible Terminator on screen, would be the one to destroy his own home from the inside out. The interloper this time didn't need to be secretive. Because he was the homeowner. And the person he intruded upon was his wife. While the woman he intruded with was the housekeeper in their villa. Arnold wasn't just an action superstar. He was a symbol of the American dream, from a poor Austrian boy to a bodybuilder, then an actor, then the governor of California. Married to Maria Shriver, niece of President John F. Kennedy, he stepped into one of America's most prestigious political families. A marriage of power, fame, and an image too perfect to doubt. Who would have thought he would set fire to that picture with his own hands? Mildred Baena was the Schwarzenegger family's loyal, quiet housekeeper for nearly 20 years. She cooked, cleaned, and quietly lived in the house, alongside Maria and their 4 children. No one noticed that sometimes Arnold was home more than usual. And no one suspected that there was a child in the house, with a face identical to his. Joseph Baena was born in 1997, at the same time Maria Shriver was pregnant with her fourth child with Arnold. Both mothers, living under one roof. Both children, born weeks apart. And for years, Schwarzenegger lived between two worlds, a devoted father by day, a betrayer by night. The irony? The older Joseph grew, the more he resembled Arnold, like two peas in a pod. But Mildred, the housekeeper mother, maintained absolute silence. Until Maria confronted the truth. In 2011, Maria Shriver sat down with Arnold at the dining table, where they had shared thousands of family meals. "Is that child yours?" No beating around the bush. No blame. Arnold nodded. And that was the end. The entire family shattered. The press was stunned. Californians were deeply shocked to learn their exemplary governor was, in fact, an interloper in his own home. Maria filed for divorce immediately after. She declared, "I need time to heal. But I'm not sure I can forgive." Arnold, in an interview, said, "It's my fault. I messed everything up. I don't blame anyone else." But apologies couldn't save Joseph, the child the world viewed with pity and curiosity. Nor could they save Maria, the woman betrayed in her own living room. Under her own roof, by the very husband she shared her bed with. People once said, Hollywood can build anything, even perfect illusions. The Schwarzenegger family was once one of those illusions. Arnold once played the hero who saved the world. But in real life, he couldn't even uphold a marriage vow. Since then, Arnold has spent a lot of time with Joseph. He takes his son to the gym, to dinner, posts photos together, as a way of making amends. But every photo shows Maria's absence. Every family reunion has an empty space no one dares to mention. Because sometimes, the biggest scars are not on the face, but in the heart. Arnold not only shattered his wife's trust but also shook his image as a model father, a dedicated leader, and a public figure. He didn't cheat with a celebrity, didn't intrude into another showbiz circle. He destroyed his own family, from within. And for many, that is the most insidious kind of intervention. Not fighting for a love, but silently killing it, with lies, year after year. Robert Evans, the Hollywood mogul's Black Book of Seduction. The cigarette smoke never cleared from Robert Evans' office at Paramount. Behind those ever-present sunglasses, not a fashion statement, but mirrored lenses hiding a predator's gaze, Hollywood's most powerful producer conducted his real masterwork. A decades-long campaign of calculated seductions that made his film plots look tame by comparison. The marriages that were just temporary options. 7 wives. 7 contracts with escape clauses Evans always exercised. His 1961 union with Sharon Hugueny ended when he was caught mid-tryst with a starlet at the Chateau Marmont, the first of many business meetings gone carnal. But his 1969 marriage to Ollie McGraw became his signature scandal. He discovered McGraw, molded her love story image, then married his creation. The irony? While producing The Getaway, Evans practically gift-wrapped her for Steve McQueen. The resulting love triangle played out like one of his films. McQueen's on-set domination tactics, allegedly locking McGraw in dressing rooms. Evans' late-night drunken confrontations at the Beverly Hills Hotel. The humiliating finale. McGraw choosing McQueen in very public fashion. The casting couch that moved to Palm Springs. At 54, Evans began auditioning 22-year-old Catherine Oxenberg. Their affair followed his playbook. Lavish gifts. Strategic leaks to gossip columnists. Ultimate discard when newer models became available. But these were just the above-the-line credits. The real work happened in shadows. Evans cultivated an ecosystem of leverage and desire, where ambition was currency and proximity to power came with a steep, often unspoken, price. His charisma was a weapon, disarming targets before the trap sprung. The whispers of his conquests became industry folklore, a cautionary tale for some, an aspirational blueprint for others. The Godfather extra who claimed her one-line role required Evans' private rehearsals. Directors' wives suddenly getting Oscar-worthy roles after dinner parties. The whispered Palm Springs weekends where starlets became bargaining chips. Evans didn't just break marriages, he broke rules. When caught with a studio head's wife. A phone call to associates in Vegas. 2 unidentified men visiting the husband. Suddenly, no more divorce threats. The 2019 obituaries praised Chinatown. They ignored the real-life noir he lived. The cocaine-fueled orgies masked as script conferences. The actresses who suddenly left town after saying no. The way he'd smirk while watching his own sex tapes. In his memoir, Evans wrote, "Love is a negotiable instrument." An entire generation of Hollywood men took notes. Today's predators still use his playbook, they just lack his panache. Hollywood's never been short on love stories, pretty ones, the kind that glitter like celluloid dreams. But let's be real, what sticks with you ain't the fireworks kiss. It's the sigh in an empty room. The last look before a door slams shut. The conversation that fractures between 2 people who've already lost each other. Nobody remembers happy endings. They remember the exact second the world cracks open, when a third shadow steps into the frame, and nothing's ever whole again. We're quick to slap labels like homewrecker on M, like tragedy's got just one name on the marquee. But life's no 3-act play. Behind every shattered relationship? A graveyard of habits on repeat. Questions left hanging in the air like smoke. Nights lying side by side, oceans between you. Then someone new walks in offering a fresh pair of eyes. A way out of the stale air you've been breathing too long. So who's really to blame? The one who showed up late or the one who checked out early? Hollywood used to worship men like Warren Beatty, Jack Nicholson, Mick Jagger, outlaws who burned through lives like cigarettes, leaving nothing but ash. No regrets. No looking back. To them, love was just another perk of the game. But when the spotlight dims, all that's left is the man in the mirror and a trail of turned backs that'll never face them again. Then there's the ones who carry the weight. Arnold Schwarzenegger once said it plain, "I destroyed everything." No sugarcoating. No excuses. But sorry don't stitch up a heart cut by betrayal's knife. The child born in silence. The woman who walked away quiet. Some debts don't got a price tag. And then there's the ones who never saw it coming till the press pinned the scarlet letter on M. Billy Bob Thornton didn't steal Jolie, but history only remembers Laura Dern's empty chair. Love in this town's a movie with no director. Everybody thinks they're the hero till they realize they're the villain in somebody else's story. Some wear the stain forever. Some vanish into the dark. Mildred, the nameless housekeeper, was the ghost at the center of Schwarzenegger's real-life tragedy, but her face never made the magazines. Just a kid growing up asking, where do I fit in this story? 'Cause in Hollywood? There's no supporting roles, just uncredited ones. Everybody's got their own script, their own scene. And sometimes one wrong line sends the whole damn plot off the rails. Then the curtain drops. The papers stop printing names. The circus moves on to the next disaster. Only the ones who really loved are left, sitting in the wreckage. Some try to rebuild. Some burn it all down. Some never risk the match again. That's Hollywood for you. Gives you the spotlight, then steals your shadow. Writes you a perfect ending just to rip it up on the red carpet. Now here's the cold truth from where I'm standing asterisk. Maybe we've all been Mildred once, invisible in someone else's story. Or Arnold, wrecking ball swinging on pure selfishness. Hollywood's just a funhouse mirror for the cracks in every relationship, the cowardice to face mistakes, the easy out of a new fling instead of fixing what's broken. But unlike the movies, there's no second take here. No editing room to cut your regrets. Just the raw, ugly truth, and it'll dog your steps no matter how far you run into the neon night. You've made it this far, reader. Sat through every stolen smile, every hollow embrace, every love story that forgot how to end. Maybe you pity the betrayed. Maybe you get why the other woman stayed. Hell. Maybe you see yourself in both. Fine by me. I'm not here to pick sides. Just to tell you this. Be honest with what you feel. Like always on this channel, I piece together the fragments, rumors, facts, the whispers in the dark, and give you the story. Read it. Then tell me what you see in the shadows. And if you want more secrets under the velvet ropes, more scripts that never made it to screen, keep your ear to the ground. 'Cause in this town, the next story's always closer than you think. And not everybody lives to tell theirs.